The crystal tumbler slipped from my numb fingers just as Adrian's private line began to ring. It struck the black marble at 12:14, exploding across the study with a sound sharp enough to wake the dead. I froze beside his desk, one hand gripping the silver tray, the other hidden inside my apron so no one could see it trembling. Amber liquor crept between the glass shards. Its smoky scent mixed with furniture polish and the bitter coffee I had been drinking to stay upright. I had worked 19 hours. My shoes had rubbed the skin raw behind both heels, and every beat of my pulse flashed white behind my eyes. None of that mattered. In Adrian's house, exhaustion was forgivable. Unreliability was not. And I needed this job. I crouched before the dizziness could betray me and gathered the larger pieces with a folded cloth. One shard nicked my thumb. I wrapped it in my apron and kept moving. Finish the room, Clara, I whispered. Then you can fall apart. The desk phone stopped ringing. A second later, Adrian's cell vibrated against the mahogany blotter. He had left it there when he stepped into the adjoining library, where a narrow line of gold light glowed beneath the door. I should have walked away. Instead, I reached across the desk, intending only to silence the vibration before it scratched the polished wood. The call connected through the speaker. Adrian. A man's voice emerged beneath a wash of static. Low. Controlled. Don't react. Someone inside the house is feeding them your schedule. My hand stopped above the phone. Beyond the library door, a page turned. How certain are you? Adrian asked. His voice came from the next room, quieter than the ticking brass clock. Certain enough that they knew which car you would use tonight. A pause followed. I heard fabric shift, then the soft metallic click of Adrian locking the library door. Names. Not yet. Your father's old records were accessed twice this week. Whoever did it has keys, authority, and your trust. Cold traveled through me despite the heat from the fireplace. Everyone in that house carried keys. Only a handful carried Adrian's trust. The caller lowered his voice. Until I know more, assume the betrayal is already under your roof. The line went dead. Silence pressed against the study walls. I stared at the dark screen, then at my reflection inside it. Pale face, loose strands of hair, eyes too bright from fatigue. I had heard something I was never meant to hear. Losing my wages would mean losing the room I rented. It would mean my mother's unpaid medical bills stacked beside her bed. So I wiped my thumb, cleaned the last trace of whiskey, and placed a fresh tumbler on Adrian's desk as if nothing had happened. The library lock clicked. I tried to stand. My knees folded before I could reach the tray. The room tilted, carrying lamplight and marble into one slow golden circle. I heard Adrian call my name from somewhere too far away. Then my shoulder struck the carpet, the wool rough against my cheek, and a pair of polished black shoes stopped beside the broken glass I had missed. Clara. His voice had lost its cold precision. I tried to tell him I could finish. No sound came. A warm hand closed around my wrist, searching for my pulse as the darkness took the room, and the last thing I heard was Adrian ordering every door in the house locked. Warm lamplight moved across my closed eyelids, followed by the measured click of a door locking somewhere down the corridor. Beneath me, footsteps crossed marble, then softened over carpet. Adrian carried me without calling for a servant. One arm supported my shoulders, the other rested beneath my knees, holding me steady while the mansion filled with clipped orders and ringing telephones. His tailored jacket smelled faintly of cedar and cold night air. My cheek pressed against its rough lapel. Lock the east wing, he said as we climbed. No one leaves until I say so. I tried to open my eyes. The chandelier above us became a river of blurred gold. My work, I whispered. Adrian's grip tightened when my head slipped against his chest. Your work can wait. It never does. The words barely escaped me. Then darkness closed again. When I surfaced, cool linen touched my face. A fire murmured behind an iron screen, filling my small room with the scent of burned oak. Adrian was lowering me onto the narrow bed himself. The mattress dipped beneath my weight. He pulled the blanket over my uniform, then placed 2 fingers against the side of my neck. His hand was warm. Mine was ice. Too fast. He murmured, counting beneath his breath. The most feared man in the city sat in the plain wooden chair beside a maid's bed and listened to every uneven breath as if the next one required his permission. A doctor's bag opened with a metallic snap. Quiet questions followed. How long had I been working? When had I last eaten? Adrian answered only what he knew, and each silence seemed to sharpen his face. After the doctor left, the room stayed dim. No servants entered. No guards crossed the threshold. Adrian remained. I drifted through fragments. The hiss of the fire, a glass touching the bedside table, the whisper of his cuff against the blanket whenever he checked my pulse again. Once, a telephone vibrated inside his jacket. He silenced it without answering. Near dawn, a thin gray light reached through the curtains. I woke to the ache behind my eyes and the unfamiliar weight inside my palm. My fingers were wrapped around Adrian's hand, not resting against it, holding it. His chair had been pulled so close that one polished shoe touched the bed frame. His collar was open, his sleeves rolled once, and a dark shadow marked his jaw. The untouched water beside him caught the pale morning light. He had stayed all night. I released him at once. "I'm sorry." Adrian looked down at the red marks my fingers had left across his knuckles. "For what? You should have moved. You wouldn't let go." Heat climbed into my face. I pushed myself upright, but the room swayed. This time, I caught the headboard before he could reach me. "I can stand on my own." His hand stopped between us. Slowly, he lowered it. "That mattered more than help would have." "Then stand when you're ready," he said. "Not when you're afraid someone will replace you." My breath stalled. He had heard me. Perhaps not every word, but enough. I looked at the expensive watch on his wrist, then at the chair where he had surrendered an entire night of control to sit beside someone whose name barely appeared on the household payroll. "Why did you stay?" The fire cracked softly. Adrian's gaze settled on our separated hands. "Because everyone in this house obeys me, Clara." His voice dropped. "You were unconscious, and somehow you were still asking permission to breathe." I drew the blanket away and placed my feet on the cold floor. My knees held. So did my voice. "Then don't pay me for this. Don't give me a better room. Give everyone downstairs one night, when they can stop working before they collapse." For the first time since I had entered his household, Adrian had no immediate answer. Outside my door, the grandfather clock struck 6. He rose, buttoned one cuff, and studied me as though the woman he had carried upstairs was not the same woman now setting terms. "Be in my study at 9, he said. "You're going to tell me exactly what this house has cost the people who keep it standing." At 9, rain tapped the tall study windows while the brass clock carved each second into the silence. The room smelled of coffee, leather, and the faint smoke left by last night's fire. I stood across from Adrian's desk in my clean uniform, one palm pressed against the seam to hide its trembling. A white envelope waited beside his hand. 6 months' wages, he said. Paid leave. A larger room when you return. The paper whispered across the polished walnut toward me. I did not touch it. No, Adrian's cuff stopped above his watch. In this house, refusal usually arrived as silence, never as a word. "Your mother has medical bills," he said, "and you need this position. That's why the offer isn't freedom." I slid the envelope back. "It's a quieter way to keep everyone else invisible." Rainwater crawled down the glass behind him. Somewhere below us, a service bell chimed once, then twice. My shoulders tightened before I could stop them. Adrian noticed. "Who answers that?" "Whoever is closest, even if their shift ended hours ago." I took a folded sheet from my apron and opened it on his desk. Names, start times, and times. The ink was uneven because I had written it while standing in the laundry room. Maria worked 17 hours yesterday. Daniel drove until 3 in the morning, then returned at 7. The kitchen staff eat after the family, if anything is left. No one records overtime because we're told loyalty cannot be measured by a clock. Adrian read without moving. The second hand ticked. "Who told you that?" "The rules did." I pointed toward the wall behind him, where 6 silver bells were labeled by room. "Those bells don't care who is sick. The schedule doesn't care whose child is waiting. And until last night, neither did the man whose name signs every paycheck." His gaze lifted. Cold. Precise. Yet he did not interrupt. So I walked to the bell panel. My fingers found the master cord, rough with years of use. I pulled it once. Its metallic cry traveled through the walls. Footsteps gathered in the corridor almost immediately, quick, trained, anxious. I opened the study door before anyone could knock. 5 employees stood there, some still carrying linens and breakfast trays. Steam curled from a silver coffee pot. A young kitchen maid had flour on one cheek and a fresh-burned cloth wrapped around her wrist. "Go back downstairs," Adrian said. No one moved until I stepped aside. That hesitation changed something in his face. "What time did each of you finish last night?" he asked. The answers came softly. "Midnight. 1. 2:15. The driver looked at the carpet and said he had not gone home. Adrian turned toward the schedule on his desk. The room had become very still. "Effective today," he said. "Every shift ends at the hour printed beside it. Overtime requires written approval and full pay. No employee answers a bell after clocking out." The coffee pot trembled in the servant's hands. "Sir," she whispered, "who will cover the work?" Adrian removed the master key ring from his pocket and placed it over the schedule with a hard brass click. "I will decide what work is necessary. Not tradition, not fear." The staff left slowly, as if the corridor might vanish beneath them. I remained by the open door. "Keep the money," I told him. "And the room." Adrian looked at the untouched envelope, then at the hand that had pushed it away. "You asked for nothing for yourself. I asked not to wake up in a house where exhaustion is the price of staying employed." He crossed to the bell panel and cut the master cord with the small blade from his desk. The severed braid fell against the wood. Quiet followed. Real quiet. Then Adrian pressed the intercom. "Bring me every payroll ledger and duty roster from the past 12 months. His voice carried through the mansion. "No corrections. No missing pages. Everyone leaves on time tonight." He released the button, but another voice crackled through the speaker before the line went dead. "Mr. Vale," the head housekeeper said, her tone tight as wire. "Some schedules were never meant to reach your desk." The smell of hot coffee reached the study before the tray did. Porcelain rattled against silver as the young kitchen maid entered, flour pail on her cheek and a burned cloth wrapped around one wrist. Behind her came the head housekeeper, carrying 3 leather ledgers against her black uniform. I stood near the severed bell cord while Adrian waited behind his desk. The ledgers landed with a heavy, dusty thud. "The rosters," he said. "These are payroll books. The originals are kept downstairs." The head housekeeper's eyes moved to me. Where they were. 2 security men appeared at the door. One held a slim gray folder inside a clear evidence sleeve. My initials were written across its tab. The room seemed to lose several degrees. "Found beneath Clara's mattress," he said. Inside were copied staff schedules, payroll summaries, and pages stamped with the Vale crest. Adrian did not touch them. His gaze settled on the head housekeeper instead. "Who ordered the search?" "I did. Sensitive records disappeared after your announcement." Her voice was smooth now. Too smooth. She had access to this room last night. She also overheard a confidential call. The young maid's spoon struck the tray. A small sound, sharp as a pin. I looked at Adrian. His face gave me nothing, but one finger pressed into the dark wood beside the envelope I had refused. "I didn't take those." "Of course not," the head housekeeper said. "They simply walked into your room." Adrian opened the folder at last. The paper whispered beneath his hand. Then he turned one page toward the window, letting the cold daylight cross its surface. "The copying marks are fresh," he said. "And Clara was unconscious until dawn." The head housekeeper's jaw tightened. Only once. She had time before she collapsed. Adrian could have ended it there. He could have called her a liar and ordered every cabinet opened. Instead, his eyes found mine, and I understood the calculation behind their stillness. Someone had planted the records because the new hours had closed a profitable wound. If he defended me too quickly, that person would destroy whatever remained. "Maria," I said quietly from the doorway, seeing her pass in the hall. "What did the old schedule list for yesterday?" She stopped. 12 hours. "And how many did you work?" 17. Daniel answered from behind her. "Mine says 8. I drove until 3, returned at 7, and never went home." Adrian gathered the copied pages into a precise stack. The figures had answered one question. The schedules were being shortened on paper while the missing overtime vanished elsewhere. But the hand that arranged it was already moving against me. "Until the records are audited," Adrian said. "Clara is suspended from household duties and restricted to her room." The words struck harder because his voice remained level. "My wages. My mother's bills. The narrow thread holding both of us above ruin." The head housekeeper almost smiled. Adrian rose, came around the desk, and stopped close enough for only me to hear the softer edge beneath his command. "Do not trust anyone who offers to help you leave." Then he faced the room. "No one questions her. No one removes her from this house. Every key is surrendered by 6 tonight." The head housekeeper's smile disappeared. I laid my apron on his desk, its coarse white cloth covering the envelope of money. Adrian's hand moved toward mine, then stopped before contact. Last night, he had stayed when I could not let go. This morning, he had to release me in front of everyone. The security men escorted me into the corridor. Behind us, Adrian gave the order that made the silence turn dangerous. Lock the financial office. If a single page disappears before 6, I will know exactly who was afraid of what Clara might prove. At 6, the brass keys struck the security desk one after another, their sharp clatter carrying through the cold corridor. Rain pressed against the windows, and the mansion smelled of damp stone and furniture polish. From inside my room, I listened until one key failed to land. The laundry key. I had polished every lock in that house. I knew which doors swelled in wet weather, which hinges complained, and which servants' passages avoided the cameras. I also knew the laundry key opened more than the linen room. Years earlier, before the West Wing was renovated, it had opened the old duty office. Someone tapped twice. Clara, the young kitchen maid whispered through the door. The head housekeeper told me to bring you a coat. She said a car will be waiting by the service gate at 7. Adrian's warning returned with perfect clarity. Do not trust anyone who offers to help you leave. Tell her I'm packing, I said. Footsteps retreated across the runner. I waited until the grandfather clock struck the quarter hour, then slid a hairpin into the simple bedroom lock. My fingers shook from hunger, but the latch yielded. The servant's staircase was unheated. Cold iron bit through my palm as I descended, following the hiss of old pipes toward the laundry. Steam clouded the tiled room. Soap stung my nose. Beside the pressing table, an empty hook swung gently. The missing key had already been used. I crossed behind the industrial dryers and pushed open a narrow oak door painted the same gray as the wall. Inside, dust softened every surface except one drawer. Its brass handle was clean. The lock resisted until I remembered how the head housekeeper always lifted warped doors before turning their keys. I raised the drawer, pulled, and heard wood scrape. 2 duty ledgers lay beneath folded tablecloths. The first matched the records shown to Adrian. 8 hours for Daniel, 12 for Maria. The second carried the hours I remembered. Daniel until 3 a.m., Maria for 17 hours, kitchen staff working through burns and missed meals. Beside each name was an amount marked paid. None of them had received it. Floorboards creaked behind me. I shut off the light and pressed into the narrow space beside the dryers. Heat rolled against my face. Through the gap, polished shoes entered, paused, then moved toward the drawer. A hand checked the hiding place. Empty. The shoes turned sharply and disappeared. I did not run for the service gate. I climbed the back stairs with both ledgers beneath my dress, crossed the dark gallery, and knocked on Adrian's study door while security guards reached for me. Let her in, Adrian said. The room smelled of extinguished fire and rain. His sleeves were rolled up, and surrendered keys covered his desk like dull coins. I placed the false ledger beside the real one. Your traitor didn't steal records, I said. They created 2 versions and stole the difference. Adrian compared the pages without blinking. His thumb stopped beside Maria's name. Then Daniel's. You left your room. I chose to stay in your house, I answered. That is not the same as obeying a lie. His gaze lifted to mine. For one quiet second, neither of us reached across the desk. Then I pointed to the clean brass handle and the laundry key's stamp number in the ledger margin. Someone came for these after the keys were surrendered. Adrian closed the books and ordered the guards outside. The door clicked shut. Whoever framed you now knows you found what they hid, he said. Before midnight, I had to decide whether proving my innocence was worth becoming the one person the traitor could no longer afford to leave standing. The telephone rang at 12:17 a.m., its brass bell slicing through the quiet study. Firelight trembled across the 2 ledgers while cold rain tapped the windows like impatient fingernails. Adrian answered. He said nothing for 11 seconds. Then his eyes found mine. Which hospital? My chair scraped the floor. The caller had identified herself as a billing supervisor. My mother needed an emergency procedure before dawn, but the unpaid balance had frozen her authorization. I reached for the receiver. Adrian turned away, already opening the lower drawer of his desk. Tell them to prepare her. I can arrange installments, I said. Not before dawn. Then I'll call every lender in the city. And lose an hour you don't have. He removed a black checkbook secured beneath a steel panel. No bank name marked its cover. Only his family crest pressed into the leather. I recognized the symbol from sealed rooms no employee entered and accounts no payroll clerk was permitted to mention. That money isn't yours alone, I said. Tonight it is. His pen moved once. The scratch sounded unnaturally loud. He photographed the signed authorization, sent it through an encrypted line, then called the hospital administrator directly. Within minutes, the supervisor confirmed that the hold had been lifted. My mother was being taken upstairs. The old question inside me, the one measuring medicine against rent, food against another double shift, went silent. Adrian's phone began vibrating before he lowered mine. One message, then 6, then 12. White light flashed across his face as notifications filled the screen. The council monitors that account, he said. A second phone rang behind him. He unplugged it. They'll know I accessed the reserve without approval. What happens now? They ask what I was protecting. His gaze settled on me. And when I refused to answer, they begin counting how much power I still control. The room felt colder despite the fire. I stepped around the desk and took the checkbook from his hand. Its leather was warm from his palm. Cancel it. No, they'll use this against you. Your mother is already being prepared. Then tell me the price. His jaw tightened. There is none. Men like you always say that before naming it later. I placed the checkbook between us. A favor. Loyalty. Silence. A room with a locked door. A life someone else gets to define. Adrian did not reach for me. That mattered. The rain thickened against the glass, and somewhere beyond the study, a clock struck the quarter hour. Look at me, I said. He did. You will never call this a debt. You will never use my mother to keep me here. You will never confuse saving someone with owning them. His fingers curled against the desk edge. For the first time, the man who could issue an order and move an entire household had to ask what his kindness was allowed to mean. Promise me. I promise. Say all of it. His voice lowered. Your mother's care buys me nothing. Not your obedience. Not your silence. Not your hand. I held his gaze another second, then extended mine. He accepted it carefully, not as possession, but as witness. The contact lasted only until his phone lit again. This time, the message remained visible. Emergency council session. 9 a.m. disclosed the beneficiary or surrender control of the reserve. Adrian released me first. By morning, he said, they'll demand your name. I closed my fingers around the black checkbook. Then by morning, decide whether your promise survives the truth. Cold dawn pressed against the library windows, turning the glass the color of steel. The radiator clicked beneath the shelves, but the room still smelled faintly of ash and old leather. Adrian had spread his father's records across the black walnut table. I stood opposite him with the secret checkbook between us, watching his thumb stop over the same signature again and again. My father approved these accounts, he said. The words sounded rehearsed. Defensive. I pulled the payroll ledgers closer. The head housekeeper's entries appeared in neat blue ink, but every stolen payment had been authorized beneath a heavier signature. The name of Adrian's late father, written with the same hard downward stroke. Adrian unlocked a narrow cabinet and removed the original estate directives. Paper whispered against paper. Outside, tires hissed over the wet driveway as council cars began arriving. We had minutes. I aligned the documents by date while Adrian compared seals, initials, and transfer codes. Then the pattern changed. The earliest orders carried his father's full signature. Later ones contained only stamped copies, each witnessed by the same person, his father's longtime advisor. The housekeeper couldn't authorize reserve transfers, I said. She altered shifts and collected the difference. Someone above her made the theft look inherited. Adrian's jaw tightened. My advisor controlled access to my father during his final year. He turned another page. The leaked schedule had been logged as a security review. The false records under my mattress had been listed as recovered evidence before security claimed to find them. Every deception had been prepared under the authority of a dead man who could no longer deny it. Adrian reached for the telephone. I covered the receiver with my palm. If you accuse him with copies, he'll call them forged. Then I'll make him answer in front of the council. And he'll hide behind your father's signature. The mantel clock struck 8. Its brass note rolled through the room, and something inside me shifted. Not a new clue. A memory. 3 weeks earlier, I had been cleaning this library when a gust from the chimney scattered loose pages toward the fire. One small book had landed against the grate. I had pulled it free with the tongs, brushed soot from its green cloth cover, and returned it to the lowest shelf because it carried Adrian's father's initials. I crossed the room, dropped to my knees, and reached behind a row of tax volumes. Dust roughened my fingertips. Heat from the radiator pressed against my shoulder. The green book was still there. Its edges were singed brown. Adrian opened it beneath the desk lamp. The first pages held household expenses in his father's handwriting. Halfway through, the ink changed. So did the signature. Adrian placed an authentic letter beside it. The difference was small but unmistakable. His father always lifted his pen before the final stroke. The approvals in the ledger never broke. On the last written page, the advisor had recorded the stolen wages, the falsified schedules, and payments made to obtain Adrian's movements. The head housekeeper's initials appeared beside each collection. She had been an instrument. The advisor had designed the machine. Adrian went completely still. He taught me never to question this signature. I closed the ledger. That was how he made sure you wouldn't. Voices approached beyond the double doors. The counsel had arrived early. Adrian extended his hand toward the book, but I kept it against my chest. They expect you to defend your father? I said. This proves my advisor betrayed me. No. It proves he used your father's name because your family trained everyone to obey it. The door handle turned. I placed the ledger in Adrian's hands and curled his fingers over the scorched cover. If you carry this inside, you lose the protection of his legacy. A knock struck the wood. Mr. Vale. A voice called, "The counsel is waiting." Adrian looked at the forged signature, then at me. I stepped toward the doors before he could answer. They framed me because they thought a maid would run, I said. Let them watch me walk in with the truth. The double doors opened on a room washed in amber light and cigar smoke. Leather chairs creaked around the long walnut table. Rain tapped the tall windows like impatient fingers. I entered first, carrying no tray, no coat, no permission. Adrian followed with the scorched green ledger in his hand. The beneficiary, one councilman said, or control of the reserve transfers tonight. I set the official payroll book beside the concealed ledger. The slap of leather against would silence the room. You want an accounting? I said. Start with Maria's 17-hour shift. Daniel's route ending at 3 a.m. Start with every hour erased before wages were calculated. Adrian's longtime advisor leaned back beneath the chandelier. A suspended maid is not a credible witness. Then read the signatures. I opened the green ledger to the preserved entries and placed the forged directives beside them. Under the white light, the difference was plain. The authentic signatures broke at each lift of the pen. The false ones flowed without pause, smooth as wire. Your hand never learned his hesitation, I told him. A councilman adjusted his glasses. Another reached for the pages. The advisor caught the edge first, but Adrian closed his palm over the book. Not hard. Final. Remove your hand. No one moved until the advisor did. Papers whispered around the table. Dates aligned. Stolen wages matched secret collections authorized beneath Adrian's father's name. The leaked schedules carried the same unbroken strokes. The head housekeeper had collected the money, but the instructions led upward, to the man who had taught Adrian never to question them. This woman manipulated household records, the advisor said. She is protecting you to save herself. I looked at Adrian. The pulse in his jaw jumped once. This was the moment he could deny everything and keep the room. So I spoke before they could bury him beneath his inheritance. He suspended me publicly when protecting me would have exposed the investigation. He funded my mother's procedure, then promised before dawn that the money bought nothing from me. Not obedience, not silence, not affection. I pushed the evidence toward the council. I am not here because I owe him. I am here because the truth does not become false when a maid carries it. Rain struck the glass harder. Adrian rose. The chair legs scraped across marble, sharp enough to make every face turn. He removed the black signet ring of his office and placed it beside the ledgers. The advisor forged the orders, he said. But my family built the system that made those orders unquestionable. A councilman warned him to stop. Adrian opened the reserve accounts instead. He named the stolen wages, the coercion, the concealed payments, and every protection his household had granted the scheme. Then he unlocked his phone and sent the complete archive to the district attorney and the Financial Crimes Unit. The outgoing tone sounded almost delicate. You have surrendered privileged records, someone whispered. I have surrendered the privilege that kept innocent people trapped. The council voted before the rain eased. Adrian lost control of the reserve, the household accounts, and the authority attached to his family name. Security collected his access card. The advisor's face went gray as investigators confirmed receipt of the files. Yet Adrian did not reach for the ring. He looked only at me. For the first time, there was no estate, no command, no debt standing between us. Then the council chairman slid a final document across the table. By midnight tomorrow, Mr. Vale must vacate the residence. The mansion's clocks began striking 11. Adrian had 25 hours to leave the empire he had just broken open, and neither of us knew who he would be when its doors closed behind him. Rain tapped the tall windows until noon, soft as fingernails against glass. By evening, the mansion smelled of cardboard, extinguished fireplaces, and the lemon polish no one had ordered the staff to use. Adrian stood in his empty office beneath a single brass lamp, folding shirts into an old leather case. No guards waited outside. No advisors entered without knocking. His family ring rested beside the surrendered access card, cold and useless on the bare desk. I carried in the last box. The employees received their corrected payroll statements, I said. Maria's stolen hours were restored. Daniel's records too. The investigators froze the accounts tied to the head housekeeper and your advisor. Adrian closed the case. And your mother? Home. Resting. The emergency procedure had worked. Her hospital balance showed 0, but the signed promise Adrian had given me remained in my pocket. No obedience, silence, confinement, or affection purchased by his help. At 11:40, the council chairman arrived with security. His shoes struck the marble in measured clicks. Mr. Vale, the residence must be cleared by midnight. Adrian lifted the case. Everything he still owned fit inside it. When he passed me, he kept both hands around the handle. He did not reach for me. That restraint hurt more than command ever had. Outside, cold rain silvered the front steps. The iron gates stood open, and beyond them waited no black convoy. Only a yellow cab beneath the wet streetlights. Adrian stopped under the portico. Your position ends tonight, he said. The household will be placed under independent management until the claims are settled. You're free, Clara. Free. The word left white breath between us. I pulled his written promise from my pocket and held it beneath the porch light. Does this still stand without your money behind it? Especially now. Then say what you want without ordering me. Rain gathered along his collar. His fingers tightened around the case until the leather creaked. I want to know you when I have nothing you need. The clock inside began its final 12 strokes. I stepped past him, opened the cab's rear door, and placed my small suitcase beside his. Adrian stared at it. You don't owe me this. I know. There may be hearings. No estate. No family protection. I know that too. The final bell faded. Midnight. Security closed the mansion doors behind us, and the locks turned with a heavy metallic sound. Adrian flinched, but did not look back. Instead, he offered me the hospital promise as if returning the last invisible chain between us. I tore it once, then again. The pieces softened in the rain. That promise wasn't the chain, I said. It was the reason I could choose. For one suspended second, neither of us moved. Then I reached across the distance and took his hand. His palm was warm, rough at the base of his fingers, and completely still beneath mine. Months earlier, I had awakened holding that same hand because my exhausted body had mistaken him for safety. Now I was awake. I knew his sins, his sacrifice, and the uncertain road waiting beyond those gates. I held on anyway. Adrian's suitcase slipped from his other hand and landed softly on the wet stone. Clara, no debt, I whispered. No command. Walk with me. We entered the rain together, leaving the ring on the desk and the empire behind the locked doors. He had once carried me when I could no longer stand. In the end, I took his hand when he had nowhere left to go, and made staying human the only power worth keeping.